a true independent without a political party affiliation in the 15th Congressional District, Jake Towne believes in protecting individual liberties, defending freedoms, and promoting peace. Please welcome Jake Towne.
I'd like to thank the organizers for having me first. During the past 6 years, the official national debt has nearly doubled from $7.5 trillion to $13.5 trillion. Per the United States Treasury, the unfunded liabilities for Social Security and Medicare is $107 trillion, which is nearly $400,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country. What has the taxpayer gotten in return? During the past 6 years, the number of service members killed in Afghanistan has risen from 160 to over 1,300. During the past 6 years, unemployment locally has doubled from 5 to 10%. The number of people living on food stamps has increased from 25 to 41 million people nationwide, which is nearly 1 in 8 Americans. Now, over 3 in 4 Americans live paycheck to paycheck, a figure which has about doubled since 2006. Again, what has the taxpayer gotten in return? We must stop the endless debt. I have pledged to balance the budget each year, and I have called upon my competitors to join me. They have chosen to not do so. I am against taxpayer bailouts of corporations like the TARP banker bailout. Mr. Dent voted to bail out the bankers, and Mr. Callahan has stated he would have voted for the bill as well. The banker bailout served to benefit the government's favorite corporations at the expense of every individual in America, costing close to $10,000 per household. By creating more future debt, the government worsens the present situation and places our next generation to unsustainable levels of debt. Whether it is the military-industrial complex, big ag, big oil, big farm, or the financial firms who bankroll their career politicians into power, the crony capitalism and revolving door between the government and Wall Street must end. I am the only candidate to not accept and to pledge to never accept money from corporations and lobbyist groups. To create jobs, we must first realize that the massive unemployment that we have today is purely a creation of the government's interventions in the economy. There is no shortage of work to be done. We must only stop the government's harmful interventions in the tax, regulatory, and labor laws. To do this, we must simply ask ourselves one question. Does this law encourage or discourage employment? And if it discourages employment, then Congress should amend or change the bill. Why enforce some regulations like reinstating Glass-Steagall and closing loopholes in accounting laws so banks and Wall Street firms can no longer pull off accounting tricks? Many other wasteful, ineffective regulations, such as the $100 billion Sarbanes-Oxley Act, must be removed since they place American firms at a disadvantage with the rest of the world. To stimulate the economy, what we could do is we could abolish the income tax for 50% of all Americans, and still lose just 3% of all income tax collected, or even have an income tax holiday for several months. This is a lot of dollars and will help by assisting individuals, and it's honestly very little income to the federal government. They increase the national debt by several $billion just about every day. It would be very easy to cut some of the government to pay for this, as well as reduce the salary of federal workers who make an average salary of $71,000, which is about twice the median household income. We must realize that governments do not create sustainable jobs. Only people do. Government's role is to preserve individual liberties in a sound business environment by enforcing punishments for fraud, contract violations, theft, and active aggression. Now, the salary of a congressman is $174,000. How can any voter believe that any candidate will represent them by slashing wasteful government spending if they fail to start with themselves? That is why I will only accept the district's median household income of $58,000. I will donate the remaining $116,000 to local nonprofit hospitals. I will not accept the congressional pension plan nor the congressional health care plan. I have called upon Mr. Callahan and Mr. Dent to join me and cut the reckless government spending by starting with themselves, and they have chosen to not do so. Our founders clearly realized that all power stems from the people. from us, and that all officers of the government are not masters, but servants. That is why I came up with an accountable and transparent form of open government where all residents will have an open voice to comment on all House floor votes called our open office. Unlike the career politicians in power, I will always tell you why I voted each way, and that way I will be held accountable to the people. Now, Americans are not faced with many good choices between the Republicans or the Democrats. It is more like the arsenic party versus the cyanide party. Each party tries to convince you that, hey, our arsenic tastes great, but the other party's cyanide will kill you. The two-headed but one-party system that controls the federal government is repeating like a bad record. More spending, more taxes, more war, more debt. And if you flip the record, all you hear is less liberty, fewer jobs, less safety, less prosperity, and less liberty. Now, I'd like to talk for a moment about a group of Americans who write a check for up to and including their lives to defend our country. Under the United States Constitution, Congress has a responsibility to provide health care to every veteran for physical or mental trauma sustained while in the military. Many veterans suffer for their lifetimes from post-traumatic stress disorder, missing limbs, and brain injuries. 5,735 soldiers have died so far in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Well over 32,000 have been wounded in Iraq alone. And behind each of these casualties are families and loved ones. Just this weekend I was knocking on doors and a gentleman had to stop talking. He was all choked up because his brother had died in Afghanistan a few years ago. Since the War on Terror began in 2001, the expenditures for the Department of Veterans Affairs has skyrocketed from $48 billion to $125 billion. Healthcare should never be lessened or denied to our veterans, but there are a lot of ways to cut costs and improve care at the same time. For instance, most veterans are required to travel to faraway VA hospitals to obtain treatment and medicine in facilities that are often subpar. Rural health initiatives to treat vets who live far from cities for 2010 alone increased by over 600% to $500 million. Instead of requiring these veterans to go to the relatively few VA hospitals, they should be free to go to any hospital and a doctor of their own choosing for treatment. Veterans also often face difficulty in obtaining employment upon their retirement or dismissal from the service. In order to assist veterans, a temporary federal income tax credit could be granted to employers who hire veterans. This is a zero-cost benefit to both the veterans and employers alike. It's crucial that we have a strong military to deter attacks against our country and protect it when attacked. However, asking our young men and women to participate in unjust warfare is a moral abyss that we as a country should never leap into. If we aspire to be a nation of laws, we must resolve to never ask them to engage in unconstitutional warfare and nation-building missions. That said, the United States of America has unfinished business with the Al-Qaeda terrorist group. However, we are going about it all the wrong way for the past 2 decades. First of all, the greatest threat to our national security is the national debt, not some boogeyman living in the caves of Pakistan. Osama bin Laden and his ilk will never destroy America. It will be the Congress who first destroy the country financially and economically by looting our blood and treasure. This is the true threat to our way of life. George Washington would be aghast at our attempts to defeat Al-Qaeda. During the Revolutionary War, the mighty British Empire was not defeated militarily by the colonists. George Washington lost just about every single major battle. Instead, Washington won the war by merely surviving, by causing the British to expend vast amounts of treasure and troops over a 3,000-mile supply chain. The government spends over $1 trillion a year on our foreign adventures, with over 760 military bases in 150 of the world's 194 countries. Yet we do not have a strong national defense of our borders. We have 55,000 troops in Germany, we have 10,000 troops in Italy. Why should the American taxpayer defend defend rich Europeans from a communist USSR that fell apart 20 years ago, so those same rich Europeans can cut their defense budgets to protect their own welfare spending. Didn't World War II end 70 years ago? However, hurling armies of tens of thousands after bin Laden is not cost-effective, nor is it constitutional, nor has it succeeded over the past 9 years. Our nation's generals admit that there are less than 100 al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and yet to capture them, the taxpayer is paying to send 100,000 troops, plus many more contractors, at a cost of over $1 million apiece, to fight with one pack of tribal warlords against another pack of tribal warlords. Each gallon of gas that we burn and transport in the Afghanistan war costs the taxpayer $400 per the Pentagon. A strong national defense begins right here at home with our borders, not the borders of Iraq, Germany, and Italy. If one takes the time to read the Iraq and Afghanistan constitutions that the U.S. had a heavy influence in writing, you'll find that the taxpayers here are not creating democracies or rule of law abroad. They are creating impossible, utopian governments that operate under Sharia law. We have our own constitution, and it's about time we begin following it. To defeat suicide terrorists, one must capture the current generation. To defeat suicide terrorists, one must capture the current generation and prevent the next generation from being created from collateral damage. Capture of the terrorists who caused 9/11 will best be attained by small units of special forces acting to enforce the law under special constitutional warrants called letters of marque and reprisal. These are increasing the bounties for the wanted criminals. Without vastly expensive armies stationed on foreign lands, creating unintended damage and death to the civilian population, the next generation of suicide terrorists will have no reason to exist. This November 2nd, you can keep voting for those who caused all this economic strife, or you can vote for a problem solver who not only has the solutions, but who will listen and be accountable to you. I have more private sector experience than Mr. Dent, and more industrial experience working abroad than Mr. Callahan. I am the only candidate to have some formal background in studying of economics. I have a proven track record of results and success as a leader in serving customers. Washington has far too many leaders and not enough servants of the people. When I am elected, I will be your public servant, your employee. Congress continues to vote for more debt, more war, and fewer jobs every year they remain in power. It is like my father once told me, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. What have the people of the 15th District received by voting for the Republicans? The same results: more taxes, more debt, more war, and less liberty. For those of you who think you'll be voting by throwing away your vote by voting independent, nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Your parties have betrayed you, your parties have lied to you, and your parties have let you down. This year you have a real choice in voting independent. I humbly ask for your vote this November 2nd. If you'd like to help out my campaign, especially at the polls on Election Day, please let me know. You can learn more about the campaign on the campaign website, which is Towne for Congress, TOWNE for Congress.com. Thank you very much.
Charlie Dent, the Republican candidate, and John Callahan, the Democratic candidate, have both been invited to this evening's event, and we are apparently still awaiting